Hello, in this video, we are going to see how to deploy a React app on AWS. Now, for that, I have a React app. Now, I don't have any changes done to it. I created this app using npx create React app command line command. So this is just a boilerplate React app. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and deploy this on AWS to show you guys how do we perform these operations. Now, this is not any different from when you go ahead and add more code to your boilerplate React app. This is just showing the deployment, so that's why I'm not going to make any changes to the code that is auto-generated by React. So I'm going to keep this. The first step is creating a repository on GitHub. Now, AWS already has a really good documentation on how to deploy a React app. Basically, I'm following the exact same steps that I mentioned and are outlined in this documentation. Okay, the first step for us is to create a GitHub repository and make sure that this project is on GitHub. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to copy the name of the app. I'm going to go ahead and create a new repository. I'm going to give it the same name that I created using my React app. I'm going to select it public, otherwise it won't be visible. Now this is important. You will see I'm not going to check any of this stuff over here. It is important that you don't add or you don't ask GitHub to create a README or a gitignore or a license file. One of the reasons is because your app, your React app already has all of that stuff in it. You don't need to create this. If you do, you're going to, when you try to upload the code, you're going to get merge conflicts and all that stuff. So we are trying to avoid that. Okay, so none of this is checked. I'm going to go ahead and create the repository. Now, if you created the repository in the steps that I have mentioned, if you did not check anything, this is the screen that you're going to get. And the reason is that GitHub is recognizing that there is actually absolutely nothing in the repository. So that's why GitHub is kind of making a guess that it's possible you already have a repository with the code and you're trying to upload it. So for that, GitHub is giving you some of the commands over here, and I'm going to be using these ones over here. Okay, we already have a repository. So what we are going to do is in my repository, I'm going to do a git init, then I'm going to commit, and then I'm going to go ahead and add this remote, and then I'm going to push these changes. Okay, so it's kind of going to be a combination of some steps over here and some steps over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the first step. The first step is to git init. Okay, so this has been initialized. The next step is going to be commit. So I'm going to go ahead and commit my changes. So I'm going to say git commit -m react initial react code. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this step over here, git remote at origin. So I'm going to, instead of typing it in, I'm just going to copy this. Let's say git remote at this thing. Okay, successful. And then I'm going to do git push origin. I already have the master branch that should already be there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this thing. Git push -u origin master, because the branch should already be there. So I'm going to go ahead and push this. Now you will see if everything is successful. This will go ahead, upload everything, and when I now refresh this, I should have something on my repository. Okay, so looks good. Here are all my changes, the README file, public, everything has been pushed to this GitHub repository. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and log into AWS Management Console. Once you do that, you will see this screen. Now going back to the documentation for deploying the application, we completed the GitHub repository, we logged into AWS Management Console. So the next step is to find the service called AWS Amplify. So once you're in the console over here in the search bar, let's go ahead and search for Amplify. So this is what we are going to use to deploy our React app. Now there are two options, but from the documentation, they say that we are going to use this one on the right, where it says Modern Web Apps. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on Get Started. All right, the next step is to select where you're going to deploy the app or where does your code reside. Our code is in our GitHub, so I'm going to select GitHub, continue. It's going to ask and say, go ahead and sign in to your GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and sign into my GitHub. Okay. The next step, it is going to say that go ahead and give access to AWS Amplify to your GitHub. Okay. Unless you do this, AWS will not have access to your GitHub repository. So I'm going to go ahead and give AWS access to my repository and confirm. Okay. And then this is going to bring you back to the console where it is going to ask you which repository do you want, where the code is basically. Okay. So from this list, I'm going to select our React AWS example repository that I just created. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one. Okay. I'm going to keep the default master branch because that's where the code should be deployed from. And I'm going to go ahead and click on next. I won't be making any changes to this. This is basically if you have some other build configurations that you want to modify, you can modify them later on as well. Usually the modification required would be if you have a CI/CD pipeline or a build or something else going on. But for now, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. I'm going to keep it default. And I'm just going to say next. Okay, so it comes over here, gives you an overview what is going to happen. So just to go back to the documentation, we completed this step, we completed this step, we did this step as well, and we are right now at this point. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click on save and deploy. And then this is going to take not that long, but this is going to go ahead and deploy our app right now. It is going through the configuration. It is installing all the libraries, anything that is required to make sure that our React app is up and running successfully. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it some more time. Looks like it's on step number 0. So let's go ahead and open this and see what is going on. Okay, so you don't have to worry about these things. Provision, this thing, and then verify. Okay, so let's go back over here. So once we are done, say amplify now, build your source code and deploy it to, it's going to give you a URL. Okay, so it looks like it is on the provision step, so we'll give it some time, make sure that this is successfully completed. So you can click on that, you can see what steps AWS is going through. What is a step? It outputs all the logs and everything. If there's any error, this would be a good place to go and find out exactly what error is happening. Once the provision is complete, looks like it's going to do a build, then it's going to do some tests. We don't have any tests, so that should be fast. Deploy, and then it's going to go ahead and verify it. I'll come back over here, and then we'll give it some time until all these steps are completed. Okay, coming back to this, my build process and everything is complete. It took me roughly, I would say, 4 to 5 minutes for this process to complete. So don't be alarmed if it is taking some time. It does take some time the first time. Again, the reason is it is going ahead and installing all the libraries and everything that are mentioned in the package JSON of your React app. So it does take a little bit of time. So approximately 4 to 5 minutes. Once this is complete, you will see all green icons over here. This means everything is good. Now we have a React app which is deployed on AWS and which can be accessed by everybody. You can share this URL. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Before I click on it and show you the app, so we have completed all the steps over here from the documentation basically. And now let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to copy this URL and I'm going to paste it in my browser, and there it is. Okay, so if you actually go to exactly this URL, you will be able to access my application, which I just deployed over here. So once you complete this successfully, you will be given this URL, and this is the URL that you can use to share your code or your website. Obviously, this URL is not very user friendly, as you can see, but this is deployed and can be accessed from everywhere else. AWS does allow you, if you have a URL, if you have a web, if you're hosting somewhere and you get a domain from some other place, you can connect your app and you can set those up in AWS as well. But this is the bare bone. This is how you deploy React applications on AWS. Let's go ahead, and I want to show you one last thing before we close this out. Let's go. Suppose you go ahead and make some changes to your code. So for example, if I go to my Visual Studio, this is the code that we were working on, and we'll make a simple change, but this is for everything. So in my UI, I have edited this, save to reload. Maybe I'll just add another p tag over here, and then I will say version 2 of the app. Okay, just a simple message. So I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is before I commit and push, I'm going to test my changes. I'm just going to do an npm start locally, and my local instance will come up over here. So I can see what the message is. Okay, this is going to load up. Okay, so looks good. So this is my local instance though, and you can see this is the message coming up. I tested my app, my changes look good, I'm happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And now I'm going to go ahead and push my changes to my GitHub. Let me just clear this. So I'll say git space add, and then I'm going to say git commit. And this time I'll say version 2 of the code. Okay, everything looks good. Then I'm going to say git space push. That's it. It's already connected. And this will go ahead and make my changes and push them to my GitHub. Okay. So once these are pushed to GitHub, let's see if I have to make any changes. So from the documentation, once you have deployed your app successfully, this is the section called automatically deploy code changes. We don't have to worry about rerunning the build or anything. Okay, so what you will see is as soon as AWS is now watching that website, your GitHub, sorry. So what it does, as soon as there are any changes to that GitHub repo, the React AWS example repo, it is automatically going to kick off a new build, and it is going to go ahead and deploy the new website. Okay, so you will see you don't have to do, once you have deployed the app the first time, you don't have to make any more configurations on your AWS side. AWS automatically detects as soon as you push some changes to the master branch. This is important to remember. AWS is only watching this repo and is only watching the master branch. So if you, for example, had a different branch and you're pushing changes to that branch, your build is not going to be kicked off automatically. Okay, by default, what happens is it is going to watch for any changes to this repo, and specifically the master branch. Okay. Once it detects those changes, AWS is going to go ahead and kick off the build again, and you will see these steps going through. And then once you refresh your URL, you will see the code changes, what we just made, are going to be there. So as soon as this verify step completes, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this app, which we deployed. You will see those changes are going to come up. So let's go ahead and see. Okay, so verify, everything is good. We're going to go ahead and refresh this. Okay, and you see the URL, this is not a local host, and you see my changes are there. Okay, so once you connect it to AWS, as long as you're pushing to the master branch of the same repository that AWS you deployed from, it is going to automatically go through the steps, build it, deploy it, verification, and then you will see those changes reflected on the URL.